So let me ask you that. Let me ask you guys to just continue this theme. What circles of society do you find this this occult behavior most in? I mean, other than Hollywood, which I have no problem believing at all.
I think it goes on in every faction of society, from the poorest, to the richest. I think it's out there everywhere.
But it has certain niches, doesn't it? Like Hollywood is definitely a niche for it. A high concentration of it. I guess it's really kind of ripe for it, right? Because I mean, Luciferianism is about self-empowerment, and I mean, you have to have an ego the size of Mars to survive in Hollywood. But I was thinking law. I know in the UK a lot of the things we're talking about in Hollywood and in those connections they pop up in the lawyers and judges circles in the UK.
Well, just think about it, though. 50 years ago, or even 30 years ago, there's no way on earth you could have a halftime Super Bowl ceremony or these rituals that they do during the Grammy Awards and stuff like that. Like right now, these are openly satanic rituals, man, with Baphomet and all that. It's right there in your face, man. They couldn't get away with this, man, 50 years ago. So there's something going on where they've captured the media and they've captured Hollywood even more than they had it, 50 years, 100 years ago. So there's that whole thing, because they know how to gravitate to power, because there's a lot of blackmail going on, there's a lot of drug dealing going on. We're going to be doing a big show about the whole thing with Robert Evans and the Process Church and Roy Reid and all that kind of stuff like that. And it's infiltrated. It's infested into this. The whole Charlie Manson thing, because Robert Evans was involved in that, man, and Jack Nicholson. Yeah.
Yes, Robert Evans and Jack Nicholson went to the house to clean up.
Right, clean up the blood.
Yes.
What house? The Polanski house?
Yeah.
Really?
Robert Evans was supposed to be there that night. He told
because you guys know that beef that Polanski got
was in Jack Nicholson's house.
Yeah.
Dennis Hopper and Jack Nicholson were there.
Right.
And the only one that got pinched was Polanski, and he can't come back to the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
But I had not heard this about Nicholson going and cleaning up the blood. So.
Yeah.
And then you got the Polanski Johnny Depp connection. You can look at the movies he made with the different people after he was sort of exiled.
Ninth Gate, yeah.
Yeah, the Ninth Gate. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did a movie, and there's an old interview. I tried to find it, and I can't find it now, where Johnny Depp goes into detail about what it's like to make a movie with him, and what it's like working with him, and how it's different. If you can read the subtext in between the lines of what he's saying, it's very interesting. It's really. And then Johnny Depp made the movie with Angelina Jolie. I say this because when you start to see the connections of who makes films with who,
right,
and for motivations they have, she has now political aspirations, which I knew that was coming a mile away. And the day we have an Angelina Jolie as a senator, well, she's in the CFR and she does work with the United Nations,
right?
And so it's like, I don't know, I guess that's par for the course, but still, I mean, this is a woman who is encouraging women to chop off their breasts and other parts of their anatomy,
Who wore a necklace around her neck with a vial of blood in it for years.
And when she got married to her first husband, they both wore plain white T-shirts with their names written in blood across them.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Making out with her brother at an awards show.
Yeah.
Come on.
So, yeah, really creepy chick.
Really, John? Really? Okay. So another tie-in is Johnny Depp lived in Hunter S. Thompson's basement for two or 3 years before he made Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And,
Go ahead.
And Hunter S. Thompson would refer to him as, like a little fairy and thing, derogatory names he'd call him. And there's a video and things of him and John Cusack and Hunter S. Thompson speeding down the road with a blow-up doll, and he's stabbing it with with a knife. And then Johnny Depp goes on to recount the story on, I think it's a Graham Norton show. I don't know if it's on the BBC in England, and he's like, oh yeah, Hunter would walk into, he was sitting there with Ricky Gervais, and he says, Hunter would walk into a room full of people, he said, and all of a sudden they'd all be moving out of the way, and they'd be jumping, and he said it was because Hunter had a cattle prod, and he was zapping them all out of the way. And he's telling him this story like it's funny or something, and I'm like, that's not really funny, that's kind of, crazy. And then he was talking about him stabbing repeatedly the blow-up doll. And then, of course, there's always that famous story about him supposedly doing the snuff films at the Bohemian Grove, and then also telling his secretary, that he had snuff films and trying to get her to watch them. And she ran out of the house or whatever. But then he ends up killing himself with the shotgun. So he was supposedly working on a book about 9/11 at the time as well. So he's a mysterious kind of a character, to say the least.
Yeah.
Because he also hung out with Jimmy Carter.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Hunter was very well liked in political circles in the 70s because if he could decimate your opponent. I mean, a lot of people might attribute his writing to, have you guys read him? Have you actually read? Okay. So, he also is one of the first public references to this whole reptilian phenomenon as well.
Oh, that's amazing. You're right.
Right?
And Fear and Loathing as well. Yep.
And Terry Gilliam didn't back away from that in the movie version either. And, and then, he goes right into it. When what's the Hispanic actor's name? He was in
Benicio.
Benicio del Toro. Or when the guy's talking on the telephone and they're on acid and the carpet is moving and the guy's talking about the body they found and they had, it was a ritual sacrificed and they had harvested the adrenochrome. And, I mean, this is in the 70s he's talking about this, right?
Oh, I almost dropped the phone or whatever, I was holding when I heard the adrenochrome scene. I was like, I cannot believe they put that in the movie. I cannot believe they let that cat out of the bag.
Yeah.
That's serious. That's right up there with snuff films because, I don't know if anybody knows what they get down with the adrenochrome and how they do it and where they get it. But
I'm going to throw this curveball out for you forgiving Christians. I believe there's a lot of people in this movement that kind of want to get out. And they have certain addictions and certain things leveraged against them.
Blackmail.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, I mean, when you look at Hunter, you see a massively conflicted human being. Massively conflicted human being. And whether he did do the snuff films and whether he is part of this or had knowledge of it and did nothing about it, a lot of his humanness really came through in his writing. And, I mean, he just basically told you in his books, don't trust anyone in power. Do you know what you have to do to even get into power in this country? And he was so he may have been simultaneously, and I'm not trying to rationalize for the guy like he was some kind of undercover reporter or something. You can't be an undercover reporter in that world. I mean, you would be psychically tainted for years, even if you fasted and prayed every day. If you accidentally found yourself in one of those rituals, I mean, they're enough to cause PTSD. So I'm not trying to apologize for the guy, but you see this very deep human struggle. And then when you do get the defectors like Svali and Kathy O'Brien that David Icke interviewed, you do see that, Svali says, she estimates 60-70% of them want out. But you get locked in. It's basically an arranged marriage. Your life, your finances, everything about your world is tied to these people. And if you turn on them, you have nothing. You're living out of your car. You're showering at the YMCA.
Well, Bruce, it's like they call it blood in.
And again, what should it profit a man if he gain the whole world but lose soul?
Right.
They say it's blood in, blood out. And the thing is this too, Bruce, you're right. If you go back and type into YouTube Hunter S. Thompson with Hell's Angel Biker on a TV show,
Yeah.
and he's actually stuck up for this girl that the guy was beating on.
Yeah.
And he was like, only punks, beat their girls. And the guy was like, well, you said you would buy us beer and you didn't, so you didn't live up to your word. And the audience is cheering for the biker. And Hunter is making a valid point, and he's actually he's way young in the interview. But, they brought this guy on stage to kind of like make him, look bad. And what he's saying is actually, true. And it sounds like he was sticking up for this girl. And, sounded like something a decent human being would say or do.
But wait a second. No, I know the interview you're talking about. And in that same interview, he says, hey, I agree. Every now and then, you got to beat the crap out of your old lady.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, look it up, man. It's in there.
So then he backed down then.
Yeah, but you're right. But that situation in that biker fight, because I read that book too, the Hells Angels book too, was that the guy was overly beaten. He was beating her up too much.
Right.
And Hunter had to step in, and then they all kicked the crap out of him. But it's interesting too how he comes out of the Hells Angels. Because they have I don't know if you ever watched the documentary online called Program to Kill, which is greatly based on Dave McGowan and his book Program to Kill, and you can find that link to his books on my website, on my blog, Opperman Report. But the Hells Angels appears to be a thread through a lot of these serial killings too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ed, I'm going to put some icing on that cake for you.
Go ahead.
I have heard many rumors from qualified sources in Canada that they were up at the Picton farm, the guy who got pinched for murdering 50 and doing snuff films.
Right.
51 prostitutes. You watch, what's the first name of the first female serial killer? Charlize Theron played her in the movie Monster.
Yeah, Arlene Warmos, another, by the way, another one.
You watch an interview with her, and
Nick
she says, do you think these Vancouver police did not know what was going on?
Yeah.
And she's, but the thing is, these people, they do know, okay? And if one of the, Ed, this as a private investigator, I have friends from all walks of life. And some of the best intel you can get on how a city or a jurisdiction is run is from convicted felons. The guys who've been to jail and they'll tell you how things run. But the thing is, you have no name. Nobody in the square world believes you. None of the news media will touch you because you have this tainted thing called a record. But in my experience, they're some of the most honest people you could ever bump into. And that's the case with Arlene. She's telling the truth, and they let her tell the truth. And one of the reasons they do is they have to. If you understand the psychological mechanism of catharsis, everybody is psychic on a certain level. Everybody feels things and understands things. And these guys, these Luciferians, they're masters at the kind of acupressure of understanding the buildup of this energy. And when it gets too big, they let air out of the balloon. That's what they're doing with True Detective. That's what they're doing with all of this stuff. And it's to deflate the psychic energy and the spiritual energy never deflates. You can't fool a spiritual person. But it's to deflate the psychic energy that would seek inquiry and resolution into these things. And this is what closing the circle on this conversation tonight, not that we're done, but this is what Stone does with these whitewash films. He gives you a little bit, enough so nobody has any more questions, unless you want to devote your whole life to it and become essentially a martyr, which, Ed, a lot of the people you interview really kind of qualify for that. There's an old saying, and this is how you can distinguish between the Luciferian and the spirit-based person. There's an old saying in mystic circles that a saint is never recognized until after they die. The Luciferian, they want it while they're alive. They want all that attention coming into their ego, all of that energy coming into their ego. And that's the supplement. That's the that's the compensation for none of the energy of God or the love of God coming into your heart. They need that energy to live, because they would probably go crazy and blow their heads off if they didn't have it. End of spiel.
I hear you, man.
I'm glad you brought up. No, I'm glad, Bruce, that you brought back up True Detective. And I think everybody who's interested in that show, look up the guy that wrote it, and what he has plans for season 2, and just all about that. That's just, there's so much there. It's very, very interesting, and I think. There's a lot of inside stuff in there, but you're right. What they're doing is
he almost for the first five or six episodes, you almost feel like you're watching like whistleblower television, Christian.
Yeah.
And then when it came to the end, I thought to myself, does this guy know when he wanted to bring it forward and HBO left it on the editing floor or took it off the pages before it went to shooting? Or is he just like another Oliver Stone type, doing another false catharsis,
And it's just him, one writer. It's not a team.
Yeah.
It's just the one guy.
Well, that's unusual, yeah.
Chuck Palazzotti.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny that we're having this conversation tonight because I've re-listened to all the old Art Bell interviews with Malachi Martin this week. And in the background while I'm working at home. And, Malachi gives a foreshadowing. He died. You guys know who he is?
Yeah, I have his book, The New World Order in the Vatican. He's a prolific writer.
Well, and he was the chief exorcist.
Yeah.
And anybody who doesn't believe this stuff is real, it's real, okay? Mm-hmm. And the trauma in the rituals is to get you possessed, is to get you seated, and you tie this into the super soldier material that Rev Radio deals with, which I think is tainted. No offense to Lorian Fenton, but I don't think it should be part of the Rev Radio agenda. It's just, look, you're interviewing when you bring one of these people on your show, you're interviewing someone who, in their own words, tells you somewhere in the interview that they can't trust themselves. So how can you trust them? There it is, right there. So,
I met a bunch of those guys in person, and I find them all to be nuts.
Yeah, but never forget the teaching said. You're a good-hearted person. I know you are. Mercy and compassion for all. Would any of us survive what they were put through from infancy?
If you believe it, them put through that from infancy.
I think they are. When you look at all the material out there, Spally and Kathy O'Brien.
Oh, Kathy O'Brien, okay, sure, but I'm talking about this cast of characters.
Kathy, yeah. Who is the one that David Icke interviewed? Not Kathy O'Brien.
Oh, it was and she's got the glazed look in her eye.
Barbara Hartwell.
No.
I gotta be careful with these.
Was it a pseudonym, Christian?
She has the red hair. She talks about why they cut the hair.
Candy or Cindy?
No, but she was an important psychic female figure in the Illuminati. They use psychics a lot. They use these human portals to communicate with their entities that guide them. And this stuff is all for real. People think that,
yeah, but I'll tell you this, man. Yeah.
There's a certain percentage of people listening to us talk now who think we're religious nuts. I'm not Christian, okay? I was raised Catholic, but I've gone another path in my life. But it's real.
Arizona Wilder.
Yeah, Arizona Wilder. Good, excellent on-the-minute research there. She goes into it, and I don't think, when I do believe them. When you're born to a family, they're basically raised in these sort of private schools / foster homes. Not Michael Prince, the other one, the chunkier one from the UK. He says that child sexual abuse is the core of the programming. Mm-hmm. So, my mercy, my compassion goes out to them. It's a brutal thing they have to go through. And
if a quarter of the stuff that they say happens, if you read some of the Fritz Springmeier stuff, they start before they're even born, sticking needles into the pregnant bellies. It gets like if you want to have nightmares, for weeks. I mean, that's like a technical manual, that book.
Yeah,
And it is just,
I don't think it's even safe to be saying that stuff on the air. Not. I just think it's just too toxic. That there's some things that
Yeah.
people don't need to hear. But, the hell was I talking about? I lost my train of thought there. But we were on to something big there for a moment, and then I went over to the super. Oh, yeah, just about, a lot of them I think want to get out, and a lot of them are sort of bound. And there's days I think we need another great spiritual figure to visit the earth and clean up a lot of this stuff, because we mere mortals, it's just too much for us. I think, I mean, one of my favorite poets, Ted Hughes, the poet laureate for England, till he died in the early '90s. He had this saying. If you guys know Joe Campbell,
Yep.
the writer, the mythology writer. Well, Hughes had this saying. He said, he said this in 1967 in an interview with the BBC. He said, "In our time, the heroic struggle is not to become a hero, but to remain a living being, simply." And it's kind of right. I mean, I don't meditate and pray. 40, 50 years ago, you meditated and prayed because you wanted a closer relationship with God. And that's part of the reason I do. But it's a survival tool today. It's not just, oh, I'm going to have a normal middle class life and be a good, decent, moral person. And I'm really kind of have this, impulse to know God more. So it's not a luxury anymore. If you don't own yourself, if you're not cleaning yourself psychically and spiritually every day, they're going to own you. We're up against too much with the meat. Look at the way we live. You can't go 100 yards in our society without public messages bombarding you. Whether it be a billboard or what have you. And the media, this is unparalleled in the human record. Unparalleled. Sorry.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Would you? Go ahead.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I don't watch those shows you guys talk about. Because even though I know that I look forward to watch the clues and stuff like that and see what's going on, and I know that I can see through it. A lot of it, there's just so much programming that we're all, even us guys that are kind of awake and aware, we're just subject to so much programming still.
Yeah.
That you gotta keep it to a minimum as much as you can.
I'll watch shows that if I get an intuitive nudge, if there's something for me to learn in it, I'll get a nudge to, hey, take a look at this. I had read no press on True Detective or anything. I just took a look at it, and as soon as you get a chance to watch it, you'll watch all of season 1, Ed. If you start, you'll finish.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, and what you said is exactly right. And which is why I won't start, because I know.
The character becomes a private investigator, so it'll really be up your alley.
Yeah. Okay, maybe I'll take a look. Ann said to take a look. She's my handler.
Handler.
So we should all study like Nicomachean ethics, I guess, and kind of like, because they send their kids to schools where they teach Aristotle and Machiavelli, and They get real schooling done at those illuminated. They're the only ones with the truly mature minds, unlike the rest of us.
Yeah.
It's a whole other other world for them. So yeah, they do the externalization stuff, and they put it out there for the people who have eyes to see it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm absolutely convinced that this is leading to disclosure. And I mean, Arizona Wilder and Svali, they both say that at some point they're going to step forward and openly assume leadership of the world. Now, I don't know how they're going to do that. Maybe they'll give some BS rationalization for the sacrifices, And I know, Ed, you don't watch movies and TV, but Christian and I have this sub-language going on. Christian, you must have seen Cabin in the Woods.
I saw it.
Are you speaking of the? Give me a little bit more background.
It was a genre. It was a genre mashup of a film, kind of like.
The movie, yeah. Mm-hmm. And they made a part 2 now.
Really?
I was unaware of that.
That's the torture porn guy. The director, what's his name? He was called The Bear.
Wait, Christian. No, Cabin in the Woods is the one where it showed that
Oh, no, sorry, Cabin in the Woods. Yeah, no,
different one. Yeah, you got to watch it. It's pretty interesting.
Yes, that's one with Thor. What's his name? Hemsworth. Yeah. I know which movie. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where they do the ritual sacrifice, but it's a big corporation that does it. It's a big underground base with the.
That's right, and they're dancing. Two guys are dancing. Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they sort of say, they sort of give a rationale in the movie for why there's something bigger and darker that the human race must serve. And,
right.
We've kind of kept it secret from you, and but it's like if we don't make these small sacrifices, we're all going to be destroyed, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it's just ridiculous. Just
matter of fact sacrifices,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are different factions, and every once in a while you'll see they're rerunning the Johnny Cash movie, and the guy that directed that, I think his last name is Mangold. He made another one right after that. It was a remake of 3:10 to Yuma, and he put kind of sort of Christian themes into both of those, and themes of like redemption and.
What do you think of Cash?
Well, if you read his book, Cash on Cash, I think it's really a good book. I think that I don't know what he was doing with Billy Graham, but I think I think what happened was he had problems with, the drugs were a big deal.
Yeah.
And what happened was he was struggling with that for his whole life. And then also with Sam Phillips and all those guys when they were first starting out, I mean, he started out with Elvis. He started out with Jerry Lewis. He started out with Roy Orbison. He started out with, all those guys that were what we think of now as the quintessential, rock stars. And, he never went electric. He always just stayed live and kind of like, he kind of, in the movie, hints that he sort of was, interested in Bob Dylan and, was kind of like keeping up with the trends and appreciated, the new stuff that was coming out, and the poetry of Dylan and everything. So it was hard to pigeonhole Cash. And I think for the most part, he was, I liked him. I thought he was a good guy. But like I said, it was such a surreal time period culturally with who he came up with and then what directions they all went in. And so it's hard. I'm kind of on the fence with him. I like Johnny Cash, and I hope that he turned his life into something good, or there was some sort of peace or catharsis that he had towards the end. But I'm not really sure, because when it comes to that industry, and it seems like the music industry is a lot worse than Hollywood, as bad as Hollywood is.
Yeah.
It seems like it's actually sure in the music industry.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah. It's almost like the beta version of what they're doing in Hollywood now, is they try it out in music first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Sun Records was the name of it, with Sam Phillips. Mm-hmm.
So I have to ask, how do you guys know that Jack Nicholson went over to Polanski's house to clean up the blood?
Oh boy, are you kidding me? Well, I first heard about it in 6 Degrees of Helter Skelter by Scott Michaels. But oh my God, Robert Evans talks about it. Yeah, and it's out there. Yeah, they went there because Robert Evans was supposed to be there that night. He promised Roman Polanski he was going to keep an eye on the house. There's so much, that Polanski broke into his house, and stole an address book because he thought that John Phillips was behind it, and he was going to check the handwriting from his address book to the handwriting and the blood on his walls. There's just so much bizarre stuff that went on and with Jack Nicholson and Marlon Brando and Marlon Brando's kids. being involved with Christian Brando, being involved with the Michael Jackson.
That's where I got my name. I had to jump in with that.
Oh, really?
Everybody thinks, like I'm named Christian because my parents might have been super religious. No, my dad was a big Marlon Brando fan, and he was like, yeah, he named his son Christian, so I thought that was cool.
And Miko Brando was Michael Jackson's bodyguard, and all this stuff was going on, and that girl Roman Polanski raped was in Jack Nicholson's house, and Dennis Hopper, man, Dennis Hopper shot a guy in New Mexico, and he didn't go to prison for it. Oh, man, what went on with that bunch, man?
And the daughter, and the son killed the boyfriend. There was a lot of, seemed like incestual sort of stuff that was going on there.
Right.
And that was kind of a sordid tale.
Well, they used to say that Christian Brando was on record saying that his father used to be able to levitate.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? Well, then you see the last movie is in dressed like the Pope and everything, I
didn't see that.
Moreau. Not the last movie, but one of the last ones, The Island of Dr. Moreau. Oh yeah, he was a character.
Yeah, Brando was out there. There was something going on with him for sure, and with his whole family, and he lost other kids too before that second set of kids.
Jeez.
Wow. Because that was a freaking Greek tragedy. What happened with his family, and then he took the stand and was crying, and they were like, well, is he telling the truth? Or he's the world's greatest actor, like, what's the deal with him, up there? Can he be trusted? What's going on? I mean, that was like, a circus.
Yeah.
Who was that lawyer in that case again? That guy,
Oh, the lawyer? Was it Bailey?
No, one of the OJ lawyers, though. And that guy's, he's involved in everything, too, man. He's dead now.
Well, Bailey was one of his lawyers.
No, OJ's lawyers.
Yeah, no. F. Lee Bailey was attached to OJ at the beginning.
Johnny Cochran?
No. It was the other guy.
Barry Scheck?
No, not Weitzman. Let me find it.
One can only imagine what a Hollywood lawyer is asked to do.
Oh, well, the other one, Garagos, that he was so famous for a while. And he was attached to Winona Ryder and
Michael Jackson.
And
well, you want to hear some weird stuff with Garagos is that he recommends me. He refers clients to me. And,
really?
Yeah. And the way he heard my name was I was involved in a Lacey Peterson case, and I did some investigation on that, and he was on the other side of it, and I was on the side of the Peterson family, and he heard about the work. Oh yeah, and they heard about the work I could do with stuff, and I even suspect that one of my clients in tracing emails was a member of the Michael Jackson family, who hired me under a fake name or something, or through an agent, because what was that?
I said, woo!
Oh, yeah, because Michael Jackson's private investigator also recommends me to people. And I heard one of the Jackson brothers saying on Larry King's show one day, he kept saying over and over, we traced the email! We hired this guy to trace the email! And back then, no one was tracing emails, so it had to be me. I was the only guy doing it. But I'm thinking of Bob Shapiro. Bob Shapiro,
right.
Fascinating guy.
Yes.
And again, pops up in all this stuff. You got all these guys with the connections to the Process Church over and over again.
It always is.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, when I was talking to this guy today, and I realized that, hey, look at this, OJ came out of San Francisco. And that's where all this stuff, that's where all the Process guys were.
Okay, so, guys, I need a little Process primer. And I'm sorry to do this to you, but 5 minutes or less, one or the other. You were Christian.
They were into Scientology over in England. They have ties with that.
Decade? What decade?
60s. The Process Church comes out of Scientology. Okay, the Church of Scientology.
Okay.
They got connections to the Beatles, man. They ran oh my God. They own the art house, the art gallery where John Lennon met Yoko Ono. They funded that Yoko Ono art exhibit there. They were involved. The Process Church of the Final Judgment was the cult that was behind the Son of Sam killings. They then started moving west. They were involved with the son of Charlie Manson. Mm-hmm. Two guys from the Process Church went to visit Charlie Manson in prison. He never mentioned the Process Church again after that. So years and years they go on. They're involved in a lot of different stuff. The Atlanta child killings, all kinds of weird stuff. I have all kinds of information that they were totally surrounding so many people in the O.J. Simpson crimes. Alex Constantine says that O.J. Simpson was dealing coke with the two process guys, Menser, with the two assassins, the Larry Flint bodyguards who shot Roy Radin, who was the Process Church snuff film photographer for the Son of Sam killing. So it goes back and forth across the country. And today they run a dog rescue, an animal rescue in Utah, and they have assets of about $40 million.
And Manson, Ed, is in Scientologists will get mad if you get this one wrong. There's a operating thetan level, such and such, which is like akin to like, let's say 32 degree, Mason or whatever. And, you just like with, Freemasonry, you have to pay for the, the different degrees. So it's expensive. And they said, well, the only guy who's, got another degree that's that high, and they split hairs over this, that someone said is an operating thetan level, whatever, is Manson. And they said, no. He's a, whatever degreed, Dianetician or something, because he wrote that book about Dianetics. Mm-hmm. So yeah. There's there's two different kinds of, things you can practice. But Hubbard was palling around with Crowley and,
Jack Parsons.
In Parsons, right. And,
but Manson came out of Boys Town.
Right.
And when they went to interview Manson one time, the only thing he wanted to talk about was being raped at Boys Town.
Oh, I didn't see that interview.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not an interview you can see, but I read about it. And from talking to Jim Rothstein.
Oh, boy. That would be interesting.
Yeah. Well, no one ever talks about that. It confirms the whole Boys Town, Larry
right.
Lawrence.
Yeah, Lawrence King.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a whole big mess. Yep. Yeah, I remember the Boys Town connection with Manson, and I remember the Process Church connection with him, but I never saw it fleshed out in an interview format with anyone.
Yeah, we got to get into more of that. I want to do a book about the whole O.J. connection, because the whole O.J. trial is surrounded by the Church of Scientology. They were all Scientologists, Greta Van Susteren and Marcia Clark.
So why would they relocate to Utah now?
Good question. The thing is,
you get the extraterrestrial connection, right? Those are the two 20th century extraterrestrial religions. Mormonism, mm-hmm. Well, it's 19th century really, but late 19th century. Mormonism and Scientology. The secret doctrine is extraterrestrial.
Right. Seems very common. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You become you get a universe that you actually become the lord of, and the more children you have, it gets really interesting. It's quite a their inner doctrine is very unique, but yeah, it spins you off into the outer space thing. Mm-hmm.
I'm amazed that this hasn't been exposed. I mean, you're doing it on your show, Ed, but I guess it has, but now, where does a group like the Process Church come into the mainstream? Because the mainstream is certainly not that fond of Scientology. Why would the Process Church get a pass?
Well, you know what? They had a lot. They were pretty mainstream because there's all kinds of connections with them, with Mary Tyler Moore and all kinds of people like that. And oh my God, there's just so much with that group. It's just and even with their. By the way, they have a connection to John Travolta as well. Because of in Roy Radin's house in the Hamptons there, they raped and drugged one of the girls who was a sweat hogs on Welcome Back, Kotter, and that was all covered up. No one was arrested,
Wow.
And by the way, I had friends who went to parties at that house back in the 80s, and they were disgusted. They were horrified as what was going on over there.
Not to get redundant, but you've just pointed out another star who's lost a child, John Travolta.
Right.
Right.
Oh, I'll send you an interesting video on that.
I'm good with the data mapping, Ed. It comes from all those years of technical writing and working with engineers.
and also lost a child outside of the United States on an island where people are easily brought.
Where
Anna Nicole Smith, right?
Yeah.
Which that, and that guy, Howard Stern, her lawyer. That guy. That guy was he argued before the Supreme Court of the United States. That guy was no idiot. He was no dummy. That guy was a real lawyer.
Yeah, Howard K. Stern.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they portray him as this kind of flaky guy. Oh, they
did. At the end, they tried to portray him as just like a hanger-on, like
reality TV show. Oh, a big joke. That guy was a real lawyer, man, and there was billions of dollars involved in those lawsuits too.
Well, can you make a connection, Ed, between like the John Benet Ramsey? If you could do the definitive John Benet Ramsey, what were the big cases? O.J. Simpson of the 90s that pretty much people are totally, off the charts on. And if you go back and look at the crime scenes, whether it's Trayvon Martin, John Benet Ramsey, and the John Benet thing, and I don't want to get it wrong, but in the picture, you have the noose, and then there's, if I'm not mistaken, there's a Masonic compass and square right next to the body.
Oh, I never noticed that, no.
Yeah. See if you can find the actual crime scene.
But there's so much bizarre stuff with John Benet Ramsey that, they called 911 that night and the police showed up, Just so much bizarre stuff with that case, yeah.
Arizona Wilder addresses that in her interview with David Icke.
Oh, really?
She defines the ritual and everything. It
was on Christmas. It was on Christmas.
Yeah. Santa is an anagram for Satan, obviously. You've got the red suit and everything. The dark side has really co-opted that. They really loathe Jesus.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now what about David Icke, whatever. I don't endorse that guy at all. I can't trust anything he says.
Why not?
Well, because he's into all that psychic stuff, and he thinks he's a god, and, I can't go for that.
Well, I hear you. And in some measure, I do agree with you. But he did come out early out of the gate, and he really opened up a whole new field of public discourse in a way that, nobody else had before him.
And now he's loaded. He's got money pouring into his lap.
No, I don't think he is. I know.
Oh, no, yeah. I know he is.
The thing with him was, Jordan Maxwell says he brought him over and he replaced him doing the research at the place that he was working at, and then they kind of like replaced him. But what happened was that with Icke, if you want to see a good thing before he got like really into the reptilians and stuff, there's a video he did called "The Turning of the Tide," where he just talks about like the banking system and more less kind of fringe sort of stuff. And that's actually pretty good. Like, it was one of his very early on types of things where you could watch it and be like, okay, I get this. And, he was talking about different parties running, like whether it was Republican or Democrat, they were both CFR, they were both 33rd Masons. You know what I mean? Like he kind of he wasn't going there to the, New Age type stuff. So there was some early work that he did when he first came out, but and then he's interviewed some interesting people. You got to sift through a lot of the stuff and kind of, take what sticks and then the other stuff, sort of.
Yeah. I give him a lot of credit, Ed, but I do agree with you that, I'm not a huge fan of the so-called psychic stuff and all that. But
reptilians, a lot of people get upset about because they think that he's saying that secretly he means Jews,
right?
Right. And they take umbrage. So
I have no problem with that stuff. I'm talking. First of all, the guy has tons of money. Now.
I'm not sure he does that. I know people who know him personally. About 10 years ago, he had all his books stolen from him because he hadn't properly copyrighted them. He basically had to start from scratch financially again. He doesn't live high off the hog. I'm telling you right now. He's not wealthy. He's not a millionaire. He might have $500,000 in the bank, but that's not wealthy, right? No, he's a solid dude, and he's done a lot for humanity, I think.
I've talked to him. I've had conversations with him on a couple of occasions. He was very, very nice, very polite and everything. I didn't get into real nitty gritty, like, you know, down and dirty stuff, but, you know, just on the surface of the stuff we talked about, he was,
Right.
he was very, very polite and everything. You know,
Right.
I like, as opposed to, like, when I met Alex Jones, he was a little bit kind of kooky, kind of crazy. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I
yeah.
imagine. You
Yeah,
met Alex?
I don't trust Jones at all.
No, he's sensationalist, to say the least.
Well, not only that, but he has all those connections to that Stratford group, you know.
Oh, yeah. Well,
And I've had some other run-ins with that group. And the other thing too is that Charlie Sheen, the whole Charlie Sheen thing. You know,
oh, God. That just, like, detonated his whole credibility with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what he was thinking. Well, you know what happened? He got a modicum of fame, and then, you know, all these celebrities then, like Billy Corgan and, you know, Dave Mustaine, you know, he got kind of like, he became the du jour guy to go on the show after 9/11 Truth had been around for a while, and everyone was kind of like not afraid to talk about it. That was a show that they could come out on and sort of, you know, vent a little bit and say, hey, look, we're down with, you know, and he, you know, they didn't have to say what party affiliation they were. You know, it was kind of like a middle of the road thing for conspiracy.
Mm.
So I think what happened was he started hanging around with, famous people, and he was so excited that he brought Charlie Sheen out, and he was like, yeah, I hang out with Charlie Sheen all the time. And, you know, his ego kind of.
The thing is, there's just so many agendas going on now. You know, like, I think the final truth is nobody's in charge. Like, none of these cults, none of these consciousness and empowerment organizations, Luciferian or otherwise, Process Church. I think everything is in flux now. And I think what happens is you see a lot of different purposes and different agendas coming through. I think, despite AIPAC, I think Israel has a very anti-American attitude right now.
Mm-hmm.
They absolutely loathe Obama. Now, I've heard the rumors, and I bring this up because I've heard the rumors that Alex Jones is sort of, you know, very getting funded by these sort of Orthodox Jewish perspectives. And so that might be one possibility. I don't think there's any uniformity in any of this either. Let me ask you guys, Christian, I'm pretty sure the answer for you will be yes, but Ed, have you ever had occasion to interact with, socialize, and have an in-depth one-on-one conversation with a 33rd degree Mason?
Not that I would know, you know, but guys like Giuliani, you know, Bo Dietl, you know, a lot of New York politics. I was pretty much up there. I met Ed Koch. You know,
right.
A lot of guys like that, very casual settings and drinking around, you know. So, yeah, I've hung out with a lot of those guys, yeah.
Yeah, I have one good friend. He's in his 70s now. He got into martial arts as a teenager, and then he was always sort of into this power-based stuff. He got into the Freemasons. He went up to the 33rd degree. And he confirms all the rumors that they're all of these psychic portals. We have portals in our consciousness, not in our physical brain, but consciousness is actually in and out of the body. This is the spiritual truth of the human being. Okay, so there is a lot of stuff going on there, and he says though that they either go good or bad, and some of them are good and some of them are bad. He went good. He fled. He went to India, lived on like $1 a day for a decade, studied homeopathy and provided free medicine to these poor villagers down around Calcutta until the Indian police said, you got to leave now after 10 years without a visa. He now lives in Europe, and he writes books on plant homeopathy and organic food growing. He's an incredibly beautiful human being. But he did say, yes, Bruce, they can go dark, very dark. And there's a lot, and 90% of them favor the power path rather than the love path. You can either, anyways, end of spiel.
Yeah, you're right. Either the service to self types or the altruistic path.
You know what, man? I get real creeped out when I hear that service to self. Because it seems to me the people I keep hearing it, repeating it, want other people to do service to others, which means donate to them.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
You know, right?
Without mentioning any names, because there just seems to be like a mantra going on. Hey, donate to me, donate to me, donate to me, service to others.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You know, I heard
it's way
that.
too convenient for me, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, there might be a bit of truth there for sure. But yeah, I mean, for me.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead, Christian.
Well, I know. I was going to answer you. Yeah, no, I've met Knights of Malta. I've been taken into the 5 Points of Fellowship, which is a knee-to-knee, foot-to-foot. They whisper in your ear, Mahabon, and they, shoulder. It's like a hug. And yeah, but the thing with Masons is, they lie. They're supposed to. They take oaths to lie. If you're not one of them. So, the thing is almost like if you want to identify yourself to them, if you're in a room with them. You have to stand a certain way, and they'll come up and kind of approach you, and if you do the right grips and stuff, it depends, but you never know, because that's literally what each oath is, and what the Masons' distress things are, is what they take an oath that if they divulge something, their tongue's going to be ripped out, or that they're going to be buried, from the neck up in sand and then drowned. You know what I mean? Like, they take these grown men don't take oaths like that for fun, to swear never to divulge certain secrets, and they do. So when you're talking to one, you have to really question how candid they're being. Yeah. And it's like that's the only issue with them.
Well, I'll tell you this. Talking about because I didn't really catch your question there, Bruce, but I was recruited by the Masons, and I was recruited at the same time by a different group, by the Scientologists. And Scientologists, recurringly in my life, through my business, tried to recruit me again later on.
To work for them?
No, I've never done any business for either one of those kind of guys. But this was at a time in my life after the nightclub and stuff like that, when I was kind of floundering around. I was kind of in trouble, and I needed help. And suddenly these guys came into my life really hard. The Mason guy, really hard trying to recruit me, and I just turned it down. Because he showed me some stuff that said, hey, you can be a Christian and a Mason.
Mm-hmm.
It was right after I got saved. And he was really heavy on it. That, oh, no, you can do both, you can do both. And I didn't even know anything about it at the time. But looking back on it, I can see that I was really being recruited really hard. And at the same exact time, the Church of Scientology was trying to recruit me. And again, it was that same thing. Hey, you can be saved, you can be a Christian, and be a Scientologist. It's the same thing, watch, And but it was a time I was in a crisis in my life and going through a lot of stuff. I'm going to write a book about it in the future. But I don't want to get into it now. But and then later on, Masons, I've never had any kind of contact. No one's ever, I never had to stand funny in a room. People kind of approach me. I never had anything like that. But the Scientologists, though, man, kept coming back. I would have people come into my business trying to apply for jobs and stuff like that, and I would love them. I'd say, oh, man, this guy's great, man. We got to bring this guy in. And then, man, right away, they would start hitting you hard with this. Oh, hey, you're Scientology? And so that's my experience with that.
What was their pitch? What was their pitch to you, Ed?
That we can, both of them, came in, especially the Masons, and said, we can solve your problem that you have right now. We can get you out of this. And we have people in high places that can help you out. And you should come on board with us. And you can still be a Christian.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and there, in a nutshell, is the absolute proof that the moral truism is accurate, that a man should always pay his own debts.
Yeah. And and the thing is too, is they came into my life after I got saved, right after I got saved, like months after I got saved.
Yeah. Yeah. So, no, there's a lot of agendas, but I think ultimately they're going to fail. I just think that God is God, and everything exists by God's grace. Everything. Lucifer. There's no battle between Lucifer and God. I mean, the Christian mythos is completely wrong.
Oh, not really. If you look in the Bible, when they said that the devil and his angels tried to overthrow God, he was just, it wasn't like, well, God had to get his angels back. He just said, be gone, and that was it. And he was defeated immediately. And that's the real biblical.
Well, yeah. I mean, but that sort of Luciferian tale comes up in other places other than Christianity.
Like Prometheus.
Yeah, yeah, and it really, I mean, God is the creator and sustainer of all things, and God is a singularity. There's no opposition. Everything below God is created to keep the world running properly. And so, I mean, it's a very interesting thing when sometimes when I'm counseling somebody who's had an extremely negative experience, and I have met people who've had extremely negative experiences, and I won't you can fill in the blank, but I'm talking paranormal, and I say, look at it this way: where were you before this happened? And they say, well, what do you mean? I said, well, where were you in terms of living your life? Were things random? Was there a fate? Was there a destiny? Was there a higher power? Well, I never really thought about it. I said, well, isn't it a blessing this happened to you? And it's true when you think about it, isn't it? Sometimes the most negative thing you can go through actually brings you closer to God.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that.
You know,
Yeah.
so that's my theory is that the devil is really an agent for God.
Oh no, I wouldn't go along with that.
Well, yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, yeah.
but I do believe that through hardship, one of the greatest times of my life is when I had a total dependence on God for every meal and every breath and every day, and that was when I was going through my first custody battle with my daughter. And I would encourage people out there too to pray for me and my daughter. We're going through a lot right now. My poor kid is going through so much these days. So if you know my situation and you can't keep us in your prayers, I would really appreciate that.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you guys. I was actually talking to the audience too, Chris, because you got to remember we're still live. Okay, it's not one of our,
Oh my God, I
after show.
forgot that.
We're still live on CJMarsRadio.com. The great Cindy Jean-Pierre has been so kind to simulcast our show and broadcast us after the show, the after show, first live after show we've ever had.
So it's a good thing I didn't let any F-bombs fly, or,
Yeah, we got to stay on top of that always, even on the after show.
No, I never do, but I mean, like, for your guests, sometimes they get, like, a little bit excited, and they don't ever say the F word, but they sometimes will use the S one.
Yeah, we try and remind people before the show, yeah.
Tell them beforehand.
You should call these after shows the Green Room, Ed.
We'll give them a name,
The Green Room is where you are in a comedy club, or if you're going on The Tonight Show or Letterman or something. The Green Room is where the people who are going on the show wait, and they have their private discussions there, and then they go out and they go on the air. So this is the Ed Opperman Green Room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it really is, and I think it's a great idea. And now, if we can have this kind of leeway, this kind of freedom to go live even after, because we're reaching about CJ Mars, Cindy Jean-Pierre was telling me that her station can reach 100,000 people.
Wow.
So we are reaching a good chunk of people, and as people get to know this and search for it, because I got to tell you, since I started doing awakeradio.us, my blog traffic has doubled. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh no. We're getting a huge response from the replays on Monday nights on Awake Radio, because it's not just Awake Radio. There's another 4 stations in that group. Capricorn Radio is involved in it, and another guy, Shizat, whatever they are, and awakeradio.uk. I'm getting emails from the UK every day. So, yeah, we really,
awesome.
And guys, hang out. We're going to say goodbye to the audience, but I'll tell you what's going on after we get off the air. But I just want to thank everybody for coming to the Opperman Report. You can find us every Friday night on freedomslips.com, Studio A, on 5 p.m. Pacific time. We're going to be on every Friday night on CJMarsRadio.com, Live 365, Spreaker, and then on Monday nights we're on awakeradio.us and awakeradio.uk at 6 p.m. Pacific time. And so and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Opperman Report, and come to my blog, The Opperman Report, and just put in Opperman Report, you'll find us, okay? But I want to thank everybody for coming on. Thank Russ Kyle, a great guy with a lot of great information. You got to hunt him down if you want to do his tour. But he has great information. He should be doing a book and a blog and stuff like that as well. So if you guys want to say goodbye real quick, we'll sign off.
Good night, everybody.
Okay, Eric, great. There we go. So good night, everybody.
Okay, good night.